We may be talking math, but we're also going to be talking hashtag observe me. Find out what it's all about. Would you let people just come into your classroom and give you feedback live?
That's right. Today on the Bedley Brothers, we have the Robert Kaplinsky with us. He is a secondary math TOSA in Downey, California. He is a math guru, and Scott and I both teach math in elementary school. We use his stuff. We love his stuff, and we were so excited to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So why don't we just get started with, well, let's get the observe me thing out of the way here, the hashtag. So you started this hashtag, you started this concept with teachers out there that you're encouraging people to kind of take a risk here and show what they're doing in the classroom and take some feedback. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I should take all the credit for it. It really began sort of in December 2015. Heather Cohen had tweeted out a picture of a sign, and the sign was a picture of was from a door on a classroom that she was walking through, and it basically said, "Hey, if I'm teaching, come on in. You can observe me. Here's what I want specific feedback on." And as far as math ed goes, it was a pretty popular tweet. It got something like near 200 retweets, and what was interesting about it is that it was remarkably unremarkable in the sense that anyone saying, "Hey, come in my classroom and watch," should be like something that no one really takes as surprising. It should be just the common reality. And so that just resonated with me that so many people didn't see it as common. And the reality is just that's not where a lot of educators are at, including I myself at times where I felt perhaps uncomfortable with my own practice. So what I tried to do was take it and formalize it. I thought, why don't we start trying to see if we can get others to do this. If we could change the culture slowly, sort of from the ground up, this might be something that we could do. So I wrote up a blog post in June, but I didn't really publish it until August 15th because I wanted to see, I thought I'd get more traction when teachers were back in school. So I included the hashtag observe me. I thought that if we included that, it would encourage people to share it more on social media, and sort of through a process of social proof, the more the people did it, the more that it would gain traction. I didn't really know what to expect. I had high hopes, but I didn't really know what would happen. The first tweet with an observe me sign came from Frank McGowan 4 days later. Then I got a few more the next day, and it's been a little over 2 weeks now. There have been at least 50 signs. I lost count around 50, with many more every day. I've seen signs from, let's see, Canada, China, South Korea, Mexico, Australia, and the United States. I've seen it spread to English, math, science, languages like Spanish and Latin, history, and I've even seen professional development providers use it in their own PD. So it's expanded beyond my wildest dreams, but I'm really hoping that it resonates with people and starts to change the culture.
It's super cool. I mean, I love the idea of just being transparent and just saying, hey, listen, it's I'm doing everything I can to reach my students. Come in and help me be better.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, one thing that's cool just in general about sharing ideas online is that people contribute their own perspectives, and then it makes you think of things you hadn't considered. Like one teacher mentioned about the side effect on students. Like, what do you think your students will think when they see that you care about them enough that you're willing to make yourself vulnerable and try to get other people to give you feedback on your own practice so you can do a better job for them? I mean, I'd like to believe it'll encourage them to make them more vulnerable. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that honestly were unintended side effects of this idea, but it's really cool to see how it resonates with people.
Yeah, it's modeling a growth mindset for your class.
For sure.
So, how do teachers get involved in something?
So the simplest idea is on my website, robertkaplinsky.com/observe me, one word. I have a short blog post, and I've put a template, a Word doc template, where they can kind of essentially fill it in. The shortest version is any sign, just put the feedback that you'd like observers to give you information on. You could just simply put an observe me sign on, but the problem is that you want people to give you feedback on what you'd actually want. Like, if you could be a fly on your own room, what would you like to see? It's not supposed to be evaluative of the teacher or evaluative of the student. It's really just another set of eyes, but when you list the target items, it gives people an idea of what specifically to look for and give you feedback on. So anything like that, once you've put the sign up and the sign has the Observe Me hashtag on it, just share it on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and what happens is that more people just think, wow, that's a great idea, and it really seems to be spreading almost like exponential growth.
I'm doing it tomorrow, Robert. I'm just telling you.
All right, I'm looking forward to your tweet.
It's going to be tweeted out, and I've already talked to many of the teachers in my district about joining in, and we're going to try to make that a little bit of a movement where I teach.
Yeah, you bring up another interesting point, which is the interaction between other teachers. In the best case scenario, people think, wow, this person's the leader. This person is willing to open up their classroom. But some teachers have said, in my school, people are starting to question my motives. Am I trying to show off or this or that? And it's just, again, really interesting ideas that I hadn't thought about. But clearly, if that's the culture, if that's the perception, then there's a lot of conversations that need to happen, just even in terms of messaging to your colleagues.
Assume positive intent.
That would be the hope.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, let's talk about math instruction. I really have been turned on lately with the 3-act math lessons, and I know that that's something that you're passionate about. Can you maybe talk a little bit about 3-act math and perhaps something else that you're finding that's that's really effective with kids and having them understand math conceptually?
Yeah, I would say that my two favorite things are problem-based learning and depth of knowledge. I don't know if you've talked much in your podcast about the difference between 3-act tasks and problem-based learning. I call mine problem-based learning, and I'll explain why. Dan Meyer coined the idea of 3-act tasks. I know you interviewed him earlier. So Act 1 is where you set up the problem. Act 2 is where you get the information, you're able to kind of resolve the problem and figure out the answer. And Act 3 is where you verify whether the answer was correct, you reveal the answer. A lot of problems don't always have that third act. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use them, but sometimes they're 2-act tasks. So more generally, I just call them problem-based lessons. So I really enjoyed them. I think that they often provide a context that's missing that you can use to really build an entire unit from. So if you begin a problem-based lesson at the very beginning of the unit, you can keep coming back to that context. If the students don't fully understand the problem, then you've essentially created a situation where there's a problem that they would like to solve that they can't solve, and they're going to be really receptive to all the content you're about to teach them because they'll be able to implement it to fix or find the answer to the problem they were looking for. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big proponent of those. A lot of the first ones I made weren't very good. I mean, it's hard to make these problems. Not all of them come out the way you hope. And really just in the process of doing them, you start to get so much better. Sometimes people think I'm really good at doing them. What I would say is I'm not good at doing them. I've just been making more mistakes than you. That's the coolest part about my job as a teacher specialist. I get asked to come into classes where a teacher will say, this will never work in my class. So my always response is, let me teach it in the class where it absolutely won't work, and we'll see what happens. The worst case is expectations are really low, but the best case is I get to really see how to make it work in every classroom, and we can talk about what the next steps are going to be. Even if it doesn't work, we know which ways we can go. So I've had a lot of fun with that, and there's a lot of great people doing them. You talk about elementary. Graham Fletcher is the king of elementary 3-act tasks. I've been doing a lot of them in middle school and high school and even elementary. There's Andrew Siddell. You've already had Dan Meyer, and there are a lot of other people. I list on my website under resources. I've got a long list of people who are doing some great stuff with 3-act tasks.
Scott, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm having a terrible time on this end. I'm getting about half of everything. So.
Oh, okay. Robert, talk to us about how you see a teacher approaching this as far as how they can communicate with parents what this looks like in the classroom, because I think it's always a challenge in the modern math classroom is what does this looks so different really for parents, and how does a parent, not only how do you communicate with a parent, but how does a parent help a child at home when you're doing these kind of things, these activities in class that they can refer back to? Is it by sharing those out with the parents? Is it by getting pictures in class? What's the steps that I can take as a teacher to make sure parents understand what's happening?
That's a great question. So when I do a problem-based lesson, like for a simple one that I think almost all Americans are familiar with, it's this which Bed Bath & Beyond coupon should you use? There's a $5 off of, I think it's 15 or 20% off coupon. And when students do the problem and they work through the problem, all the problems ultimately end in a, for me personally, in a your conclusion section where they have to write up their thinking. In this place, they marry the content and the context. So the math content, which in this case would be markup and discount, and the math and the context, which would be the Bed Bath & Beyond coupon. And they should be able to articulate which coupon they should use and why in a way that their parents, who weren't necessarily doing the problem, should also be able to understand. So maybe perhaps something like this. I should use the 20% off coupon because the price of the item I'm buying is $75 and 20% off would save me $15. $15 is more than the $5 off coupon, so I know it's the better coupon. Any parent should be able to realize that train of thought makes sense and they could show their calculations. But if they can't articulate their conclusion in ways that the parents will understand, then the parent knows that more context needs to be brought in or more content needs to be brought in.
Hey, Robert, thank you for that answer. Should kids use calculators?
I personally, I think this is a really interesting question because there's this weird calculator guilt that math teachers have.
Totally.
And I have a very strong, and I think Conrad Wolfram did a really great TED Talk, and one part of his TED Talk resonated with me especially, which is the vast majority of K-12 education is spent on things that calculators can already do with very little time on things that calculators cannot do. And so you wind up with this reality that all the things that students learn how to do, they never actually use in real life because they use a calculator for it. Me personally, I'll make a very simple answer. I think that if you're using a calculator in real life, then you should allow students to use a calculator for the same situation. Being more detailed, like if I was teaching 5 plus 5 or math facts, I wouldn't necessarily say use a calculator. But if you're teaching markup and discount and you have to find the sales tax, and the sales tax is, let's say, like 8 7500ths, and you're making the kids multiply decimals by hand, that's ridiculous. That's a waste of your time. You should be spending more time on the actual understanding of the process and the concept than on the actual calculations. So I'm all in favor of letting kids use calculators. I mean, I'll say one more thing. I've had a class where it was a class on, when I was teaching 7th grade, students were doing a test on markup and discount, and I made it open notes and calculator access, and the vast majority failed. And the point being is, the issue, what I came to realize was, it wasn't about the calculations that was the issue. It was that they needed to have better conceptual understanding. And if you're spending so much time on the actual calculations, you don't have enough time to get to the conceptual understanding.
Yeah, and the frustration for us as teachers is that the tests that they have to take are asking them to multiply 3-digit times 3-digit numbers, which none of us would ever do by hand. We'd all use a calculator or something like that, and yet they can't use calculators when they take the tests, the standardized tests.
Yeah, I try to stay out of politics as much as possible. But the one thing I'd say, just as a question, is this. If you were to go through the state standards and highlight the ones that were something you could actually complete using a calculator and then look at what's left, I think that's a conversation we should have, because if we're focusing on outdated skills and more time could be spent on actually helping students become better problem solvers, I think at some point what we think we want and what we actually want became disconnected. And so I really think that we're forced to spend a lot of time on skills that no one's ever going to use again, and I'd love to spend more time on problem solving.
I was so relieved when I found out that they took guide words off of the elementary school language arts test.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and really, the kids need to learn how to look up things in a dictionary? I mean, come on, that's a little outdated. So I hear what you're saying.
Definitely.
What's going on?
I don't know. I was waiting for you to follow up with that, Tim.
I'm still getting terrible tech issues. My voice is going like crazy. So
yeah, you're probably gonna have to edit a little bit of this.
a lot of it, yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully it's coming out on that end, but it's a nightmare over on my end. So
Robert sounds good, and then you sound very echoey. I don't know if he sounds echoey to you, Robert, or not.
It sounds okay to me.
Okay.
okay, cool. All right, well, great information, Robert. Let's go ahead and switch gears and play a little game with you right now, if you don't mind, to have some fun.
All right, let's do this.
All right, so Robert, you make problems for kids to estimate and think critically about things. So we thought we'd play a little game with you that we're calling, Hey Kaplinsky, I've got your estimation right here, pal. So you're going to try to estimate the answers to the following questions. And Scott, why don't you tell our audience who Robert will be competing for today?
Robert, you're going to be competing for Frank McGowan. It's late, by the way. Frank McGowan and Miriam Bruner. We're going to actually try to win prizes for 2 people tonight, Tim.
Yeah, I'd like to say that those two were I picked those 2 because they were the first 2 people in the world to tweet out some observe me signs, which I thought was pretty cool.
And you know what? I don't know where in the world they are, but we're going to get them a prize, hopefully, here. And if you're able to answer 2 out of the 3 questions correctly, Frank and Miriam, they'll be awarded a free download of the ridiculously popular edgy rock band Rockin' the Standards. Tim?
All right, so question number 1. According to the latest statistics, that's from 2013, how much will the average American family spend raising a child born in the year 2013?
All right.
Talking from birth to age 18. Do you have any kids, Robert?
I have one, an 8-year-old son.
8-year-old, okay, so you're almost halfway there. But if you were to have a kid or have had a kid in 2013, we want to know how much would you spend, and this is adjusted with, inflation and all that stuff. So the first answer is A.
About $245,000.
Or is it B?
About $110,000.
Or C?
About $940,000. Oh my goodness gracious.
Okay.
I sure hope it's not C.
Your choices are $245,000, $110,000, or $940,000 to raise a child in the average American home from birth to age 18.
All right, I'm going to go with A. I think that's the 245,000 one.
245,000 is correct.
Right.
Nice estimation there. Way to go. Good math skills. Okay.
Is that technically an estimation?
Yeah, sure it is. You start adding.
I'm teaching it all wrong then.
All right. According to the question number 2. According to the USGS, how much water does it take to grow a cotton shirt? Now, I never knew the cotton shirts actually grew, but the cotton shirt. So, how much water would it take to grow one cotton shirt? Is it A?
Wait, this is really important in California. 10 gallons of water.
Or is it B?
100 gallons of water.
Or is it C?
650 gallons of water.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
So your 3 choices, how much water would it take for one cotton shirt? 10, 100, or 650 gallons of water?
I hope it's not 640, and 10 sounds a little low, so I'm going to go with 100.
Well, the correct answer is actually, believe it or not, 650 gallons of water.
Holy moly.
650 gallons of water for one shirt. Now I'm feeling kind of guilty for wearing a cotton t-shirt. So.
That makes it do.
I think that's all you wear too, Tim, right?
It is. It's all I wear. All right. But it's better for the environment somehow. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Question number 3. Estimate for us approximately how many miles of blood vessels.
By the way, Robert, no pressure on this one.
Right.
You have to get it right. Okay. Approximately how many miles of blood vessels are in the human body?
And you passed with a D in our class. That's by the way.
A?
3,000 miles.
Or is it B?
60,000 miles.
Or is it C?
300,000 miles.
Okay, so your choices are 3,000 miles, 60,000 miles, or 300,000 miles.
I feel like I heard something once and thought it was ridiculous, but all three of these answers sound pretty ridiculous. Um, uh, what was the second one? 30,000?
60,000 miles.
60,000 or 300,000 miles.
Wow, that 300,000 cannot possibly be right. I'll go with 60,000.
60,000 is correct.
Right.
Wow. Game on the line, and you pulled it off. Scott, how did Robert do in our game today?
Good job, Robert. You got 2 out of 3 correct, and that's good enough to be a winner.
Nice.
Woo! Congratulations, Robert. You've won absolutely nothing. But Frank and Miriam, they just won a free download of Rockin' the Standards. Hey, Tim, that's a great album, and I know you had something to do with it, my friend. It's for second through, who knows, I still love it.
My son told me the other day, who's in 8th grade, he's like, Dad, I still use the Mean Mode Median song, and he's like doing geometry and stuff, and advanced.
Mean Mode Median.
Yep, that's right. So he's like, you need to make more songs for high school. I'm like, well, they are for a lot of high schoolers, actually. All right, Robert. Well, thanks for sitting with us and struggling through the technical difficulties. I learned a lot from you today, and I'm excited about the Observe Me hashtag and getting involved with that. So why don't you let our listeners know how they can connect with you in the future?
Sure, thank you. So my website is robertkaplinsky.com. That's Robert spelled regular, but K-A-P as in Paul, L-I-N as in Nancy, S-K-Y.com. I've got lessons on my website and lots of other resources. You can connect with me on Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest at Robert Kaplinsky on all of them. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but Open Middle has a lot of depth and knowledge problems tonight, and I co-run that with Nanette Johnson, Brian Anderson, and Dan Luevanos.
What's the URL for that?
It's openmiddle.com, kind of creative.
Yeah, openmiddle.com, great. And Scott, why don't you tell our listeners about Global School Playdate?
Hey, we really think it's important for students to have a chance, and children, I shouldn't say just students, children to have a chance for unstructured play. And so we started something a couple of years ago called Global School Playdate to say, hey, we're going to start from the schools, we're going to promote this. We'd love kids to be able to be outside playing every single day. It not only promotes health, but empathy and all kinds of creativity and imagination, and it's just almost a lost art at this point. So we want to say get your kids outside. Last year, Tim, we had, over 177,000 kids around the world participating, and we look forward to seeing even more this coming year. It's the first Wednesday of February, but it should be every single day.
That's right, and we're off to a great start for 2017. You got a ton of sign-ups already, so join in on the movement and make a big, loud statement by signing your class up, your school up, and perhaps even signing up for the whole school day. That takes some guts.
Hey, Tim, I wanted to say thank you to the good people over at Appletree, goappletree.com, for helping to sponsor the show. We've had such a tremendous following that we're running out of bandwidth as far as downloads. If you want to help support the show and you love the show, give us a favorable rating, or go to patreon.com/BedleyBros, and you can donate if you'd like to help us out with our costs as far as our storage of the shows and things like that. So we really appreciate you listening, and we want to keep providing this resource to teachers for free. Robert, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming in tonight and sharing what you're doing, and we are really looking forward to just continue to see what you do to help us lead and change education and be out there as a voice. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
And folks, go to his website. If you teach math and you haven't been to his website, you are missing out.
Yeah, that's amazing stuff.
Really good stuff. Alrighty, well, thanks for watching, and again, give us some ratings. Unless you don't like the show, then you can skip that part, but write us a review, and thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and most of all, we want to thank
Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad for watching.